Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into some really powerful ideas from Marshall Goldsmith's book, The Earned Life. We're going to talk about how to build a life that actually feels, well, earned. A life you can look back on and say, yeah, I did that right, without that nagging, what if feeling.
So, let's start with a feeling I'm pretty sure we all know. Regret. You know that feeling, right? It's that heavy weight you get when you look back and just wish you'd taken a different path or made a different call. It's a really powerful emotion, and man, it can keep you stuck in the past. But here's the big idea. What if we've been looking at this whole thing completely backwards? Instead of spending our lives trying to avoid past mistakes, which just sucks the energy right out of you, the author says we should flip the script. Focus on building future satisfaction. Now that is a life that actually creates energy and pushes you forward. And this really brings us to the central battle of our lives, doesn't it? Think of it like a spectrum. Way over on one end, you've got a life just dominated by regret. And on the far other side, you have a life of real, deep fulfillment. The thing is, we're all living somewhere on this line every single day. But here's the kicker, and this is what's so fascinating. Where you are on that spectrum, it has almost nothing to do with what we typically call success. You could have all the money, all the status, all the awards in the world, and still feel completely crushed by regret. So if that's not the answer, the key has got to be somewhere else. So if fancy titles and a big bank account aren't the answer, then what is? Well, the book gives us this incredibly powerful new goal, a totally different way to think about our lives. It's what he calls living an earned life. So what does that even mean, an earned life? Get this, it's not about winning or losing. It's about that deep, gut-level satisfaction you get from knowing you gave your absolute all to something that genuinely matters to you. It's about the process, not just the prize at the end. And this whole idea really boils down to three key things. First, your decisions. Then the risks you're willing to take because of those decisions. And finally, the effort you put in. When those three things, your decisions, your risks, and your efforts, are all pointing in the same direction, all aligned with your personal mission, that's when you're living an earned life. You're literally earning your own fulfillment every single day. Okay, so that sounds simple enough, right? Make good choices, take some risks, work hard. So why is it so ridiculously hard to actually do? Well, the book points out some really powerful forces that are always trying to keep us stuck right where we are. Let's dig into what those are. And yeah, these are the big dragons we all have to face. There's inertia, just coasting on the easy path. There's the weight of our upbringing, trying to live up to someone else's expectations. And then there's just plain old fear. Fear of failure, sure, but maybe even more powerful, the fear of what other people will think of us. This reminds me of a story in the book. This question, when will you start living your own life, was asked to this super successful executive. He had his dream job lined up, leading a huge environmental organization, but he was just frozen. And why? Because he was terrified his old colleagues in finance would think he'd gone soft, that he'd given up. He was living for their approval, not his own purpose. Crazy, right? So let's turn that back on ourselves for a second. Take a moment and really think about it. What inertia is guiding your life right now? Because those little habits you do automatically every single day, that path you're just kind of coasting on, that is literally creating your future. Is that inertia actually taking you where you want to go? All right, so we've identified the bad guys, the things holding us back. Now let's talk about the good stuff. Let's arm ourselves with some tools to fight back. The book lays out 6 key factors that are absolutely critical for building your own earned life. And this framework is pretty neat. It's broken down into 2 buckets. On one side, you've got the internal stuff, the things you can actually control, like your own motivation, your skills, your confidence. And on the other side, you've got the external factors, the things you have to navigate out in the world, like finding the right support system and, making sure the world actually needs what you have to offer. And let's be really clear about that word ability. It's way more than just a technical skill you put on a resume. Sometimes your greatest strength isn't what you do, it's who you are. Your honesty, your empathy, your talent for bringing people together. Those are incredibly powerful, world-changing abilities.
Speaking of that external factor, support, the author gives this really fascinating piece of advice. He suggests that your most powerful support group, your personal board of directors, should have no more than 6 people. Any bigger than that, and the advice just gets muddled and confusing. 6 seems to be the magic number for getting meaningful, clear guidance.
Okay, so having all the right tools is great. It's fantastic, but they're pretty much useless if you don't know where you're going. And that brings us to the final and honestly the most crucial piece of this entire puzzle, having a purpose. And here it is. This is the heart of it all. The most profound, the most lasting fulfillment. It doesn't just come from your own personal achievements. It comes when all your day-to-day actions, all your little wins, are in service of some bigger, long-term mission. Something that helps your family, your community, maybe even the whole world. And it's so important to get this. This isn't a one-and-done deal. It's not some finish line you cross and then you're set for life. An earned life is a continuous journey. It's the daily, conscious practice of just checking in with yourself and asking that simple question, are my actions today lining up with the person I really want to be? And that, my friends, leaves us with the ultimate question. It's a big one, and it might not have an easy answer. And that is totally okay, because the simple, honest act of just asking it, well, that's the very first step toward living a life that you can truly, deeply, and proudly call your own.